The other night on the Part of the Problem podcast, Dave Smith made some comments about the military that are just inaccurate. And anybody that's a fan of Dave Smith and his show knows that Dave loves to respond. So I wanted to take this opportunity to respond to Dave Smith. So here's what he said on his show the other night.
We have a military that essentially, and this sounds kind of harsh, but if we're just being really blunt, we have a military that is what we call a volunteer force. But what volunteer force really kind of meant in effect was it's not everybody's problem. It's the poorest, most disenfranchised, most optionless young men, mostly in our society. We will bribe slash propagandize them into doing the military service. And so like that, now don't get me wrong, it's in many ways preferable to a military draft. And overall preferable to a military draft, but it also becomes not really like middle class families' problems anymore. Middle class and above, you really don't, in America, you really don't know too many people who are in the military for the most part. It's really in poorer rural areas where everyone is done some military service.
So you see there, Dave kind of paints this very bleak picture of the young men and women that join the military, like as though we're all poor and hopeless and we really have no other options other than to join the military. And this is not accurate. I served in the Marine Corps from 2004 to 2008, and I come from a middle class family. All of my friends that also served, they come from middle class families. The majority of the people that I served with were from middle class families, and that's still true today. Like the majority of the military is primarily made up of middle class men and women. Now, do I think a lot of the young men and women that join the military might be, young and confused and misguided and kind of not know where they want to go in life? Well, yeah, I agree with that, but that's pretty common for all young men and women. They graduate from high school, they don't really know what they want to do with their lives, and to some people, joining the military seems like a good choice. Dave makes it seems like everybody that joined the military has no other option. I went to college before I joined the Marine Corps, and it wasn't for me, so I dropped out and I ended up joining the Marine Corps. Lots of people that join the service have other options. To say that they don't have any other options kind of takes something away from those young men and women. It is honorable for those individuals that decide to serve. Now, I would agree that they've been propagandized and misled, as Dave kind of alludes to there. He's talking about how they're kind of, you know, told like, oh, well, you're doing a patriotic service and this is for the Constitution and freedom. And I agree that's misleading. That's not accurate. Um, but when they join, that is what they believe. And I think a lot of people that continue to serve, that's still what they believe. So, and I agree with Dave when he said that he doesn't support a draft. I absolutely, I would never support a draft or, conscripting people into military service. You know what I mean? It should definitely be a voluntary military, and our government shouldn't be sending our troops into any conflicts that wouldn't be able to, get enough voluntary support. If as long as your government is engaging the military into causes that are in the interest of the country and actually in the interest of the freedom and safety of Americans, maybe not, NATO countries or any other countries in the Middle East, if they're doing it in the interest of Americans, then I don't think you would ever have any issue, raising an army. But I just, like I said, I like Dave Smith. I like part of the Problem podcast. Him and Robbie the Fire Bernstein. They're great advocates for liberty, great advocates for the free market. So I really enjoyed the show. I just thought that was such an inaccurate representation of the men and women that serve in the military that like I said, I just wanted to respond to Dave Smith on that. And I hope he figures that out, that that's an inaccurate thing. And I hope he doesn't, continue to repeat that, because it's, like I said, it's not accurate. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment.